yeah, just a quick introduction. So myself and Rai, we're actually colleagues and friends. We kind of discovered this problem going back probably just over a year and a half ago about the ability of how we're not using social media to its full capacity in an organization. So this is really talking about our kind of journey. Now, Network Rail is known as an organization, but for any of you that aren't aware, we just wanted to share a short video with you, just telling you a little bit more about Network Rail.
At Network Rail, we own, manage and develop Britain's railway infrastructure. That's 20,000 miles of track, tunnels, level crossings, 40,000 bridges and viaducts at some of Britain's biggest, busiest stations. But our responsibilities and commitments go beyond that. The railway in Britain has a proud history. It is also the fastest growing and safest railway in Europe, and an efficient, green and reliable railway is at the heart of a modern, dynamic and progressive Britain. That's why we're investing hugely in the biggest programme of rail modernisation since the Victorian era. We're not only upgrading the railway infrastructure, but developing digital technology to enable faster, closer running and more reliable trains. Our work will ensure British industry continues to thrive, enabling economic regeneration through investment, bringing people and business together and transporting millions of tonnes of goods every year. For us, it's not just about more rails, trains, signals and stations. Our work is about making a real difference to people's lives. We take care to work with local communities, sharing what we're doing and how it will improve the railway near them. Our vision is a better railway for a better Britain. We're delivering a railway that's safer, more reliable and more efficient than ever before. That will act as a foundation of our successful, sustainable economy, delivering the best possible service to all our customers.
Lovely. Raj, hand it over to you.
Perfect. Thank you for that, Raj. With social media, we have a variety of different channels, and I think just like any other organization as well, we've always been strongest when it comes to, in social media, when it comes to the bread and butter of the business. For us, as you've seen with that, it's kind of the railway, our stations, and how we kind of inform our passengers. So we have a lot of a variety of different social media accounts. We have corporate accounts, we have managed station accounts as well, like King's Cross or Euston, and they play the part in alerting our customers of changes to do with timetables or changes on the day or any issues that have been on the railway. With our careers channels, we've been on quite a journey in terms of getting it consistent in terms of what we want to push out, and we've slowly been over the years bringing implementing strategies, scheduling our content and making sure we're in line with what it's essentially promoting our staff, but also and seeing ourselves as the employer of choice, but also aligning with some of our other channels as well. So you can see here a list of a few of our posts that have happened on a variety of different channels. And when it comes to awareness days as well, which is part of our strategy and is joined with all the accounts, we make sure to basically align to that as well. So a lot of what we do in terms of social is we align for International Women's Day, we align for International Women in Engineering's Day. You can see there's stay safe with Thomas and friends there as well. And in the past as well, we've gone out on Twitter with Big Bang as well, and just aligning with that. So really we are the channel for careers, as you can see here, but we also align with some of our other channels as well. And although they've essentially had to be there more strategically with social, slowly over time, we've now got to a stage in our careers channels where we're strategic on what we're doing, and we're aligning and planning ahead in terms of what we've been doing. Next slide, please, Raj. Thank you. So what we'll talk about as well in this presentation, I hope some of the key learning points you take away really is we're going to share our journey in leveraging social media, especially for recruitment as well, and how we've optimized our career channels. We're going to talk about a candidate-driven approach to recruitment as well, and some of the results we've seen from that as well, which have been fruitful, and essentially using content as a window into Network Rail. And I think that's a really important part as well. As a large organisation, we've always broadcast this, how we saying there's not been almost a personalised feeling of Network Rail, and with some of the campaigns we're doing, letting our staff show their personalities, it's been really fruitful in terms of giving a window into Network Rail. Next slide, please, Raj.
Cheers, Ryan. Thank you. That's great. So what I wanted to kind of do is give a perspective in terms of how we've used social media in recruitment marketing, and kind of the potential crossovers, really. So from a recruiter's journey perspective, what we wanted to try and move away from, and as in-house recruiters, we often understand this concept of post and pray, that we hope that we'll find the ideal candidate at the ideal time for the ideal role that we're all probably being put under considerable pressure to kind of source. We also wanted to kind of alleviate the power for our organisation directly, and maybe rely on job boards and LinkedIn a little bit less. And while job boards and LinkedIn are very important, they certainly hold a very important role in what they do. Ultimately, what we really want to do is we want our audience to come to us directly, rather than specifically relying on supplier or middle kind of supplier organisations. So it was also about understanding who our audience are. So Network Rail as an organisation is a monopoly business. There are certain roles that you can only really grow up and do within the railway, but there's lots of other positions that we can bring people generally very easy. So we started our journey off by doing a lot of what we call daily life and day in the life articles, just talking about what it actually means to be a signaller or an operative or a finance business partner or HR manager, and just trying to push out as much content focused information to the market to understand who we are. We focused a lot on images and videos. So we've used talent market analytics to understand where our audiences are. We focused our talent on maybe key diversity stats that we're trying to achieve. So Network Rail had set its target of 2020 for 20% women by 2020. We've now set a further target for our kind of BAME community for increasing 9% to 13%, which is really a fantastic open target the company is working towards by the end of control period 6. So these sort of snapshots are just examples of things that we would post onto Facebook, which would give us the ability to talk about specific roles that we may need, or just about careers in Network Rail, or things that you didn't understand about Network Rail. And the idea for us is, the challenge was to break perceptions that we're not about driving trains, which sometimes people do think. We're focusing on our strategic themes as an organisation, and somebody who's working in active resourcing team looking after a large area is we need content to be delivered in real time as per our calendar. So for example, in International Women's Day, something that we celebrate as an organisation, we need content sent out in real time at the right time. And that's the flexibility that this platform of social media has given us. Hand it over to you, Ryan.
Perfect, thank you. And then we just wanted to talk about a case study we had recently with our signalling roles. So this was around February, March time, and essentially we wanted to trial out a new approach in terms of recruiting signalling. It was more, for our team, it was a really good opportunity really to kind of move towards the recruitment marketeering element and focusing on that as our attraction strategy. So this was essentially a case study to trial out a different method of recruiting signallers to see if the results were more proof of Network Rail. So we trialed it out for the Northeast route, and we essentially wanted to recruit 40 signallers in there with the signalling population as well. And sorry, before I even get into signallers, signalling is essentially the traffic light system of the railway. So essentially our signallers would be there ensuring that the right trains move at the right time, so there's no accidents or incidents. So that obviously comes with quite a strong safety approach when it comes to what we're looking for in the role. Going back to our objectives, we wanted to increase female representation as well in our signallers, and with the marketeering approach, we wanted to increase it at each point, and we'll go into that into more detail. With that as well, we had quite a negative sentiment with signallers, and part of that that was essentially, we didn't make it easy for them to understand the role, but also to get the information they needed to apply to us. So the process was more cumbersome, and the information they were getting just weren't in line with what essentially we needed them to know. So we had quite a negative sentiment with our signaling audience, and it was something that we needed to change. So some of the challenges we also had was the UK went into full lockdown at that period of time, and also not just trialing out a new method of recruiting signalists, but also navigating through that in the new ways of working as we're currently more used to now. But the approach through all of this really was just to help our business find the right candidates at the right time. And in addition to that as well, it's just to help our candidates, just to make it easy as possible for them to understand the role, and just put as many things as we possibly can in easy reach to make sure they understand the role, but they're also confident to apply and get to Network Rail. Next slide, please, Raj. Thank you. So this is essentially the model we trialed out when it came to putting everything in easy reach of our candidates. So because it was a new method of trialing this, one thing we did even before we got to the first touch point was that we made sure that all our activities completely tracked. So every single post is tracked, all the activities tracked. So when it came to the website, we knew exactly what was working. So our key touch points was the first touch point being social media. With that, then the candidates follow through to the landing page. Furthermore, we also we implemented a live chat and a register your interest form as well, off the premise that we understood that although we're trying it for the northeast route, there might also be other routes that would be interested in that, in essentially trialing out this model as well. And lastly, when they get to touch point 4, which is application, they'd have everything, they'd be aware of absolutely everything they needed and to be completely strong in applying for the role. So going back to social media, there were a few things we trialed in that market. First of all, we had a warm-up week really, and the warm-up week was really good for us because it gave us the opportunity to trial what, in terms of what would work and learn as well. So with the warm-up week, we essentially used quite a lot of organic content, and that was just educating people on what the signaling role was and what it entailed. As we got more and more feedback from that as well in terms of queries, we were able to feed it through the different touch points as well to kind of update and analyze what we're doing. So as we went out with the organic content and the warm-up week, and we made people aware, we then, when it came to our paid ads, we tried A/B testing as well. For this campaign, we went with male and female ads, going back to the objectives of obviously trying to get more female reach to our signalers. Part of a key strategy as well when it came to social was going live. So we went live for the first time on Facebook with 2 of our signalers, Tom and Liam. And even prior to going live as well, we made sure that we gave our candidates and our audience on Facebook and social media essentially an avenue to ask us questions as well. So it was really good because when we went live with purpose. Going live was to answer their questions about the role and any queries they had in there. So there were some of the key strategies in social media. And when it came to the landing page was populated through a role profile, which we had to ensure that everything that they needed to know on the landing page was what they had on there. As we got more and more feedback as well, we were able to change that to add FAQs as well as animations to inform our audience. But although we had a clear idea of exactly what we wanted to do, I think it's really important to state that it was also being flexible with our audience and what they needed to understand or learn. With the landing page as well, we had the live chat, and that was added as a feedback loop as well. So not only did we have the comments we had on social media, we had the live chat there, which was also informing our social activity, but also the landing page and the content that was on there. And when they came to the last touch point of applying, through those previous touch points, they should have absolutely everything in as easy reach as possible, but also that awareness of what the key criteria are for the role, and if they are a match for the roles. Thank you, Raj. Next slide. So as you can see here, this is a layout of our candidate touch points, really, and again, with the ability of the tracking codes, it really helped us to really validate what we're doing in this regard. So as you can see, they went out on social. We had quite a lot of engagement, and that was the key metric on that. Clicks was obviously a key metric as well, but I think with engagement, part of what we were trying to do was change the sentiment of our signaling community. So it was really important. Engagement was a really popular, important metric as well in terms of how well we're doing. We were then able to track the male and female audience. Again, our objectives are to drive the females into the signaling role, and essentially we're monitoring that through absolutely each touch point to see the micro conversions that happen between each of the touch points. When it came to the landing page as well, because we had a variety of different social media content, organic, paid, it really helped us to see what worked. So for example, we'd see the differences between Facebook paid and organic. We'd see the difference between the female only ads to the male only ads, and essentially we could then have an average to work out what is working for us and which channels are doing basically the relationship between each channel to the careers landing page, and what that means for it holistically. We going past the landing page as well with the interest registrations, it was really important that when we did this activity, we could also align that to other routes and other parts of the businesses that wanted to trial out this method as well. So it was really important that although we went out with the content to get to essentially attract signalists for North East, it was aligning that and having the register your interest means that when we tried out the campaign again, which we have done recently in the past couple of weeks at East Midlands, we also had those candidates that we've kept warm for the past couple of months ready to apply for signalling roles in their location. And then what we were really happy about with this campaign really was the completed applications, and you can see there as well, with the signallers being quite a safety critical role, it was really important that they meet quite a high standard of benchmarks, which you can see below in the complete applications they have done. But I think quite an important element of that is just being authentic on social media, so they understood exactly what the role was. And we've even had some feedback for some candidates where they've actually gone, you know what, this role isn't for me, and that's been really, really positive as well. And as you can see there, we met our objectives of the offers. So we had 41 offers and they were all accepted with 100% rate, and even then we reached a 21% female audience. That was double what we met in the past, and traditionally we'd our signalling population when it comes to females make up 10%, so it was really fruitful in terms of our objectives, what we wanted to achieve. Sorry, next slide please, Raj. And one thing that was really, really important for us throughout this signalling campaign was just being authentic. So not only did we go live, as I said previously, with purpose, but we went with COVID and more people essentially doing webinars like we are and being in front of the camera. It gave us an opportunity to basically move more into video, but from a user-generated perspective. NetRail has always done videos in the past, but they've always been the corporate video that you would have seen earlier that had really good production value, but it doesn't always tell the story of our people. So this is a video of Debbie, and essentially how it worked with this campaign was we started off with a video of Debbie giving a perspective as a signaller, and we also had other signalers as well giving their perspective, and then we've been able to repurpose that for different channels as well. So starting by video, we've been able to then transfer that to long form content in terms of blogs, articles, and just giving more insights on the website as well. We've also been able to repurpose that to short form content as well, which would be obviously for social, in the form of video, in the form of text, or even some branded activity, for example, on Glassdoor or Indeed, where we had quite a large Signaler audience. And importantly as well, by basically working with video first, having that authentic content that shows people the window into Network Rail, but also kind of our staff, we've then been able to repurpose that content as well for branding. So this video we've created then works in the future, in a few months' time, in 6 months' time as well. So although we have the campaign period, it's really, really important that we almost have that always on approach, really, just so we're giving information all the time and being giving that awareness of our signalling roles, and that essentially speak to our signalling population there throughout the duration of the time. Sorry, next slide, please, Raj. So yeah, for us, really, when it came to leveraging social media, I think a lot of where we've been fruitful is just that focus on helping, that focus on that candidate approach, and that focus on making everything as easy as possible for the candidate. What was really helpful for us as well was just using organic content to inform page strategy as well. Although we might have our plan of what we want to say, what we want to achieve with the campaigns, it's really important to have that testing period as well. So whether it's A/B testing through paid or using that in organic content to inform paid, we found that to be quite successful. There's always a push to go live on social media. And I think for us, and what we'd always say is, when you're going live, just ensure you go live with a purpose. Our signalers, our signalling community benefited, our candidates, because when we went live, we were going live to answer the queries they've actually asked before them. It's been quite direct, and everything has been a two-way conversation between us and our audience. And more than anything, completely be authentic. Videos obviously been quite a great way for window in to Network Rail, and our staff have really showed their personality, but really being authentic has been really, really fruitful for us. And in terms of leveraging social media as well, working with our resource and leadership team to discuss local strategies, and also kind of getting information from the bottom up in terms of what's going off in their areas has been really, really fruitful for us as well. So that was that was essentially our journey with social media Network Rail, really. Just going from a stage where we were just putting out content reactively to a stage where we've been a bit more strategic and aligned what we're doing with our content calendar, but also some of our other channels as well. And we'd be quite keen to open this up to a Q&A to see what questions you have for us.
Excellent. Thanks, guys. That was fantastic. If you could just stop sharing your screens, that'd be wonderful. So I've got a couple of questions, actually, for both of you. Feel free to lead whoever's the best person to answer.
Yeah.
What did you find the biggest challenge implementing this approach to hiring signalers?
So I think for us, one of the biggest challenges was actually, I'd probably say two. One was reaching a female audience, because traditionally signalers are known in the bracket of our Team Orange or role. So therefore, our audience always had a perspective that it's a male-only role. So really kind of pushing
orange roles content. Because they wear the orange jackets.
Yeah,
that it is basically right. Okay.
Yeah, so yeah. I think there's always a stigma with our track workers and our workers that are out on the line that it's a male-orientated role. So I think for us that's been quite a big challenge. And where we've been able to alleviate from that is actually having that authentic content, so reaching out to our females that are in those roles and getting them to give their perspective on their life in Network Rail. And I think equally as important as well, asking our male audiences the same question as well. So for example, it might be how are you balancing your family with the signalling role? And obviously we ask that for absolutely everyone to get their perspectives as well. So we're not just approaching female questions or whatever, it's just everyone's getting the same question, so we get that insight on what's working for everyone.
Okay, that makes sense. And I think you mentioned, correct me if I'm wrong, that with the early stage of advertising, you're putting out adverts targeted at females and adverts targeted at males.
Yeah.
I was thinking in my head, why not make all adverts, regardless of whether they're hitting a female or a male audience, actually have a female slant to them? So then actually they start to influence the culture of males applying as well. So they feel that actually this is a job for either males or females.
Yeah, and with that, it was really, for us, I think a lot of what we've been thinking about is that when we go out, we'd like our audience to see themselves as the person. So for example, if we're going out, when it comes to our BAME audience, for me especially, I'd like to resonate with that person. So the whole premise and methodology on that is essentially, by having a female in the female ads, they can hopefully resonate with that female and see that. And again, with the male ads as well, they can kind of resonate with that person. So when it comes to diversity, for example, we would then change that around. So with the person that we're advertising, or kind of they're telling their story, essentially we're quite focused on who we're reaching and they're resonating with that audience.
Okay.
And I think I think we also use a platform, an automated writing platform, which does soften the language of our content anyway, generically, which we've been using for the last couple of years. But I think the idea was that we try to use a more targeted approach for specific campaign work. But for me, one thing that I noticed was that historically, large campaigns were costing a ton of cash, basically, to put it politely. In volume role, especially if you were using suppliers. So a lot of challenges for in-house organizations is time, budget, and stakeholder buy-in. And if you can't get one of those three things, it's very hard to effectively do what you want to try to deliver. So we use this method of social media as a way of kind of going to market with content that the recruiters wanted to go out with when they want to go out with. That was very important for me as a resourcing lead for my areas. That if my team wanted to talk about employer brand, they could do that instantly. About a specific job, they could do that instantly, or they could tie it to kind of a specific campaign. So that kind of flexibility for me was the key, and at a cost that we could afford much more in real time, rather than throwing 30-40k at a campaign and then just assuming that it's going to work.
Okay, that makes sense. Absolutely. We have now had 3 questions coming in from the audience. Awesome. So that's the most we've had today so far. So let's work through these in order that they came in. So the first one is from Mills Banji, who I believe is from an organisation called Tappin, if it's the same Mills Banji that I know. And he said, he knows a lot about social media and attraction, actually. And he said, for the signalling position stats, were these stats only from Facebook ads, or did you leverage Instagram, LinkedIn, or any other social channels?
So we actually leveraged LinkedIn, Facebook. We don't have Instagram for careers as of yet, but we did LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter as our main social media channels.
Did you find one of those outperformed the others considerably?
It's I guess for me, with the variety of our different objectives, they more work in harmony is the word I'll use. So for example, Facebook would drive the majority of the volume, and when it comes to signaling population, they're just not going to have a LinkedIn profile. That's just the reality of that audience. They will be on Facebook. But when it comes to, for example, our higher grade signalers that might have a background, for example, in the fire brigade or something like that, kind of safety critical perspective, then although it might not drive as much volume as Facebook, but you could argue that audience is also quite needed for the higher grades. So I don't think I think the thing I'd say is that I don't think there's a better or worse channel when it came to that, but it was more so about ensuring that we understood what each channel was doing to drive adding that together to the story. So I don't know if it's a bit too woolly, but I definitely
it makes sense.
It's more important to basically add them together and work out which one has its strengths and where the other 2 or 3 or 4, how many other channels you have can kind of compensate for the others.
And most people are on multiple social media channels
Yeah.
after all, aren't they? So you can send out
100%.
different messages can come from different channels and different
Yeah.
calls to action, or not even a call to action. It might just be a case of communicating stuff out there and warming people up, moving them through the
100%.
kind of pipeline before hitting them with actually, you might like this role, why don't you apply, kind of thing. So yeah, no, I get that entirely. And I think that might answer Sophia Hodges' question. She asked, which channels did you find most effective? So I think we've kind of answered two questions in one there. Is there anything you wanted to add to that, Raj?
Yeah, I'd say, Alan, probably the only thing is that so that campaign was for only 40 roles. We have a lot more roles than that.
Yeah.
So I think one thing that to answer the question is that there will always be an element of unknown when you're trying something new. So we started off small, targeted, and use that as a benchmark to then go bigger. So if we try different platforms, which we are constantly, people are constantly throwing platforms and supplier activity towards us. So we were able to take a punt on something. If it works, we then grow it. If it doesn't work, we do something else. So you have to kind of, if you've got the flexibility and budget to do that, it really does help. Otherwise, sometimes you just generically keep going out on the same platforms expecting different results. Isn't always going to be easy.
No, you have to test, don't you? You test and figure out what works and then scale. Yeah, but invest accordingly. Okay, next question is from Erin. We don't have a surname, just an Erin. How did you manage to maintain authenticity but stand out from the noise on social?
If I'm being honest, when it comes to being authentic, and I think it's the biggest comms challenge is finding the people that are, the people that the energy and are being quite excited and can kind of win an audience over. So for us, really, it started really reaching out to the local business area and finding out who and working with them really to see who would be the best people for this campaign. And you'll always have the employees that the person that are always want to be in front of the camera, and we managed to find them, and that really helped us to drive that authenticity. Not only that, but it also, we were learning as well as we were speaking to them, whether it was going out on live or working with them to get the videos ready for when we're going out with our paid ads. But for me, really, I think when it comes to being authentic, it's absolutely finding the people in the business that can give an authentic story and perspective. Although we went out as Network Rail, really, it was Debbie's perspective, it was Tom's perspective, it was Liam's perspective at Network Rail. We just simply asked some questions and then they gave us the answers and their personality. So for me, really, don't just find the people in the business and just let them
be there.
flourish and see.
Let them be themselves.
If we're too stringent on the questions, that's where we might have lost our audience. So as vague as, I guess, even framing the questions that you can get insights, but also being slightly vague so it enables them to bring out their personality.
Exactly. So first tip of interviewing, isn't it? If you make your question too closed, you get a short answer. If you make it nice and open, you'll get something it's more themselves and more their personality will come out. Exactly. Anything you wanted to add to that, Raj?
No, that's absolutely fine.
Perfect. So next, we've got two more questions. So next one is from Anna Lopez. Could you please share an example of a local strategy that worked well?
I think I could take that one. So my team look after corporate functions, which is like HR, legal, comms, finance, system operator. So a system operator is the division that looks after timetable planning for Network Rail. And one particular area is kind of, we have kind of a high volume, what we call operational planners, the people that start learning and training about how to do timetable planning. It can take up to 18 to 20 weeks worth of training. Being kind of more of an entry-level role and going out to market maybe 3 or 4 times a year in the assessment center format meant that there was quite a requirement to try and keep the content fresh in order to kind of get more and more good candidates, whether it's through university, apprenticeship, people going for second careers, all these kind of good things. So we used a social media approach to target audiences where we historically were seeing that the retention wasn't there within the business. So it's rather than just trying to put a finger up in the air and thinking, well, where are we going to recruit? We actually reversed it back and looked at the size of the ops planning community, which is about 250, looked at their age demographics, looked at their ethnic backgrounds, looked at where they actually came from, and then formulated a strategy of where do we need to kind of fill gaps, because a lot of recruitment start looking at workforce planning and potentially long-term strategic workforce planning. So we knew that a lot of our ops planners were people in their kind of 30s, a bit older, who were staying longer whereas people in their 20s were using it as a platform to jump into other roles. So we were creating content, which we used a little bit of a snapshot in the presentation to try to target those specific audiences, as well as more senior candidates, neurodiverse candidates who have a fantastic aptitude for some of the elements within Ops Planner world, but needed maybe a slightly different management approach. So by analysing our own staff and the retention stats within the organisation, we then created a strategy which we then went back out to. So we were able to get about 300-400 applications within about 2 weeks, which we then took through a online virtual process, which everything, because of COVID, had to go online virtual, which we were able to convert, and we were able to fill about 30 offers off the back of that in a systematic kind of way. That went really well.
Nice, great work. Okay, I have another apology to make to Sophia. So Sophia has had her question answered twice by answering somebody else's question. So Sophia is our last question. She said, was it difficult to get engagement from staff to complete the videos? Did you prep or provide scripts? And Ray, you had already spoken to this. Maybe elaborate a little bit.
Yeah, so one, we wouldn't have definitely provided scripts. It was just basically open-ended questions. And I think where we'd provide scripts is where we would not be able to get their personality. So it might be, for example, how do you balance work and life? And that'd be it. And it's on them to kind of give their perspective on that. We'd ask that to every single person. Again, we might have a question like, what's your perspective on this value, or something like that. And that's kind of going towards our evergreen content. So when we have that video, we can recycle it for 6 months time or a year's time. What was the other bit of the question? Sorry.
It was about how did you find the people?
Oh yeah, I think sitting centrally, I'm not going to have that awareness of that, and really it's important to have our local teams drive that. So we just reached out to our business managers. They basically told us who they think would be great for this, and we were able to reach out to them, and they were really great for it. So really, just with the comms challenge, you've got to go local and find the hidden gems.
Excellent. Anything you want to add, Raj?
No, that's covered it really well.
Good. Well, listen, that's all the questions, guys. Thank you for that. It was really insightful, a really engaged audience as well throughout your session. Keen to learn more, lots of questions, which I think you handled and answered very well. If anybody wants to hear more, I guess they can reach out to the two of you if they want to dig any deeper.
I think we've got another one come through.
Oh, have we? We've got time as well. We've got 3 minutes. Okay. Another question from Mills. He's eager. He's keen today. You mentioned that you run an effective funnel ad strategy that delivered incredible results. How do you ensure that those passive candidates that come across you on social are kept informed about some of your roles and are still learning about Network Rail, even when you're not running a live campaign?
Yeah, and I think part of that, and I guess the ability of video is, traditionally, as Raj said, we do the day in the life articles, and with our signalers being quite a safety critical role, you can imagine that might be quite, managing the time between the signal box and the safety of that and everything else. It can be quite difficult to then do shall we say, an essay. So by working with video, it's quite easy for them to, here's a question, get in front of the camera, respond to it, and then we can transfer that to text, whatever we need to. So by essentially not having tunnel vision in terms of the questions we have just purely for the campaign, but aligning the questions we have to our values, the role itself, their perspective and life at Network Rail, it means that we have content for the campaign, but also after the campaign to keep always on and off. Yeah. And adding our live videos into that as well, we can then go into our live videos, the questions we've asked, edit them, reposition them for different times of the year as well. But it's really looking at the campaign, but also looking at what you might want in the future as well. And video has been a really, really good enabler for this.